Ladies and gentlemen, life is difficult. That's an undeniable fact. You will suffer. You will face disappointment. You will lose things you love. And in the midst of that, you will question everything. You will wonder why this is happening. And you may even ask, what's the point of it all?
But here's the truth. You have two choices. You can descend into chaos, bitterness, and resentment, or you can stand up, face the world with courage, and trust that God has a plan for your life, even when you cannot see it. Life is filled with suffering, but trust in God provides meaning.
This is not just a philosophical idea. It is a reality that every person must come to terms with at some point. There is no escaping the pain, challenges, and struggles that life inevitably brings. People get sick, loved ones die, relationships break apart, careers fail, dreams fall short.
And in the middle of all of this suffering, it is easy to become cynical, bitter, and hopeless. It is easy to look at the world and ask, why does this have to happen? Why does life seem so unfair? But here's the truth. If you focus only on the suffering itself, you will become lost in despair.
You will fall into a pit of resentment and anger, convinced that life is nothing but meaningless pain. But suffering is not the end of the story. It is not a reason to give up. It is a call to faith. Trusting in God does not eliminate. It transforms hardship into growth, pain into purpose, and despair into hope. Without God, suffering is just suffering. It is random, cruel, and pointless. But with God, suffering is part of a greater story, one that leads to strength, wisdom, and deeper understanding. Faith does not remove the challenges of life, but it gives you the ability to endure them with courage, knowing that they are shaping you into the person you were meant to become. Think about it. If everything in life was easy, would you ever develop resilience, discipline, or character? No, it is the struggle that makes you stronger. When a person lifts weights, they are tearing their muscles so they can rebuild stronger. When a seed is planted, it must break apart underground before it can grow into a tree. And when a person faces hardship, they are being refined, tested and shaped into someone greater than they were before. The process is painful, but it is necessary. And when you trust in God, you understand that this process is not random. It is intentional. Every difficulty you face is an opportunity for growth. This is why faith is so important. If you do not trust in God, you will look at your struggles and think they are pointless. You will become bitter, blaming the world, blaming other people, and maybe even blaming yourself. But if you have faith, you understand that there is something greater at work. You understand that even when life does not make sense, God is still in control. You may not see the full picture, but He does. You may not understand why certain things happen, but He does. And if you trust Him, you can endure suffering without being crushed by it. Look at the lives of people who have overcome great hardship. They are not people who avoided suffering. They are people who faced suffering head-on and refused to give up. They are people who trusted that their struggles were leading them somewhere, that their pain was not wasted. History is filled with examples of people who went through unimaginable hardship but emerged stronger because of it. And what is the common thread in their stories? They believed that their suffering had a purpose, and that belief gave them the strength to keep moving forward. Now consider the opposite. Consider what happens to people who lose faith, who believe that suffering is meaningless. They become hopeless. They become trapped in self-pity. They begin to think that life has no purpose, that everything is random, that nothing they do matters. This is the path to despair. And once you go down that path, it is hard to come back. When people lose faith, they stop trying. They stop believing in the possibility of something better. They surrender to their pain instead of pushing through it. But you do not have to take that path. You can choose to believe that there is meaning in your suffering. You can choose to trust that God is using your struggles to shape you, to prepare you, to teach you something important. You can choose to see every hardship as a lesson, every challenge as an opportunity, every difficulty as a stepping stone towards something greater. This choice is what separates those who rise from those who fall. If you look at your own life, you will probably see moments where something painful ultimately led to something good. Maybe a rejection led to a better opportunity. Maybe a hardship taught you a lesson that changed your life for the better.
Maybe a time of suffering deepened your faith and made you stronger. These moments are not coincidences. They are proof that suffering is not meaningless. They are proof that God is at work even when we cannot see it. So what does this mean for you?
It means that when you face difficulties, and you have a choice. You can give in to despair, or you can trust that God is using this moment to shape you. You can become better. You can resist the process, or you can embrace it, knowing that it is leading you somewhere important. And when you choose faith, something incredible happens. You become stronger. You develop resilience. You learn to see challenges as opportunities rather than obstacles. You stop running from hardship and start facing it with courage. You become the kind of person who can withstand anything, not because life is easy, but because you trust that every difficulty has a purpose. That is what faith does. It does not remove suffering, but it gives you the strength to endure it. It does not eliminate hardship, but it gives you the perspective to see hardship as part of something greater. And when you trust in God, you will find that even in the darkest moments, there is still light. Even in the hardest times, there is still hope. And even in the midst of suffering, there is still purpose. Chaos and order coexist, and faith bridges the gap between them. This is one of the fundamental realities of existence.
At every moment, in every life, there is an ongoing tension between the two. Chaos represents the unknown, the unpredictable, the suffering and uncertainty that come with being human. Order represents structure, stability, and the things we rely on to make sense of the world. We cannot escape either of them, and the way we navigate this balance determines the quality and direction of our lives. Too much chaos in life becomes when everything is uncertain, when there are no rules, no structure, and no sense of stability, people become anxious, fearful, and lost. They drift without purpose, feeling as though they are at the mercy of forces beyond their control. This is the state of despair where nothing seems to matter and life becomes overwhelming. People in chaos lack direction, and without direction, they spiral downward into confusion, addiction, resentment, and suffering. On the other hand, too much order is also dangerous. If everything is rigid, if nothing ever changes, if life is nothing but predictable repetition, then there is no growth, no learning, and no room for anything new. People trapped in too much order. They refuse to adapt. They resist challenges, and they become blind to the deeper, more complex realities of life. They never question, they never question. And while they may feel secure, they lack meaning that chill extremes. You cannot avoid chaos, but you cannot be consumed by it. You cannot rely entirely on order, but you cannot abandon it either. The solution is faith. Faith is what allows us to stand on the bridge between chaos and order without being destroyed by either one. Faith gives us the ability to move forward in an uncertain world, trusting that there is meaning even in the unknown. It allows us to embrace the challenges of life without being crushed by them. Faith is not the absence of uncertainty. It is the ability to move forward despite it. When you trust in God, you acknowledge that there is a structure to the universe beyond what you can immediately see. You recognize that even when things seem chaotic, there is an underlying order that you may not yet understand. This is what allows people to endure suffering, to overcome hardship, and to find purpose even in difficult circumstances. Think about the people who have faced extreme adversity and yet still found meaning in their suffering. They did not allow chaos to destroy them, nor did they cling so rigidly to order that they refused to grow. Instead, they trusted in something beyond themselves. They had faith that the struggle was part of a larger plan. They stepped into the unknown not because they had all the answers, but because they believed that purpose existed even when they could not see it. When you lack faith, chaos feels unbearable. Every difficulty becomes a reason to give up. Every challenge feels like an attack. You begin to believe that life is nothing but suffering, and you may start to resent everything around you. But when you trust in God, you understand that chaos is not something to be feared. It is a part of life. And it is often through chaos that we find our greatest growth. At the same time, faith prevents you from becoming rigid and unyielding. It keeps you open to new possibility. People who refuse to step into the unknown out of fear never reach their full potential. They stay where they are, never taking risks, never learning, never developing. But when you have faith, you can step beyond what is comfortable, knowing that you are not alone. You trust that even in uncertainty, there is a path forward. This is why faith is not just a belief, it is a way of living. It is what allows you to function in a world that is constantly changing. It gives you the ability to face the unknown with confidence instead of fear. It helps you adapt to new situations without losing yourself. It allows you to pursue something higher, even when you do not fully understand what lies ahead. So the question is, where do you stand? Are you trapped in chaos, feeling lost and overwhelmed? Or are you clinging to rigid order, afraid of change and refusing to grow? The answer is not to eliminate one or the other, but to embrace faith as the bridge between them. Trust that there is meaning in both chaos and order. Trust that even when life does not make sense, there is a planet. Trust that you are being shaped, prepared, and strengthened for something greater. The world is unpredictable, and suffering is inevitable, but faith gives you the strength to walk forward anyway. It allows you to find balance, to navigate uncertainty, and to build a life of meaning, even in the face of the unknown. Faith is the bridge that allows you to move between chaos and order without being lost in it. And when you walk that bridge with trust in God, you find a life that is not only stable, but also deeply purposeful. Taking responsibility leads to a purposeful life under God's guidance. This is a fundamental truth that too many people ignore, often at great personal cost. It is easy to blame others for the difficulties in life. It is easy to look at unfair circumstances, painful experiences, or personal failures and convince yourself that it is all someone else's fault. But that mindset leads nowhere. It creates resentment, stagnation, and ultimately despair. The real path forward, the path that leads to meaning and fulfillment, is the path of responsibility. Responsibility is not just about doing what is required of you. It is about recognizing that your actions, choices, and mindset shape your future. It is about stepping up and accepting that no matter what has happened to you, you still have the power to move forward. When you trust in God, you realize that responsibility is not a burden, but a calling. You understand that your life is not meaningless, that you have been given a role to play in this world, and that it is up to you to fulfill it. A person who refuses to take responsibility drifts through life without direction. They blame circumstances, other people, and even God for their struggles, but they do nothing to improve their situation. They live passively, waiting for things to change instead of taking action. But change does not happen by waiting. Change happens when you decide to take control of what you can, trust God with what you cannot, and move forward despite uncertainty. This is not about pretending that life is fair or that suffering is always deserved. Many people experience hardships they did not cause. Tragedies strike without warning. Injustice exists, but even in the face of these realities, responsibility remains the best path forward. If you lose everything and choose to stay in a mindset of victimhood, you will never rebuild. But if you take responsibility for what happens next, if you choose to trust that God can work through even the worst situations, you will find a way forward. When you take responsibility, you begin to see that you are part of something greater than yourself. You stop focusing only on what is wrong and start looking for what you can do. You begin to see that God has given you strengths, opportunities, and a purpose that only you can fulfill. But you cannot discover that purpose if you refuse to take responsibility for your own life. Many people feel lost because they are waiting for a sign or a clear answer about their purpose. But often purpose is found not by waiting but by acting, by doing what is right, by taking care of what is in front of you, by committing to something meaningful. You begin to see a larger purpose unfold. God's guidance often becomes clear when you step forward in faith, not when you stand still in fear. A responsible life is a meaningful life. It means showing up for the people who depend on you. It means working hard even when no one is watching. It means standing up for what is right even when it is difficult. It means trusting that God has a plan for your life, but also understanding that you must play your part in fulfilling that plan. Too many people avoid responsibility because it is difficult. They would rather take the easy path, the path of distraction, indulgence, or avoidance. But the easy path never leads to real fulfillment. It leads to regret, because deep down we all know that we are capable of more. Responsibility may be hard, but it is also deeply rewarding. When you choose to take responsibility, you gain confidence, purpose, and a sense of accomplishment that cannot be found any other way. God has given you a life to store. He has given you gifts, opportunities, and challenges that are uniquely yours. And He is calling you to step up, to embrace those challenges, and to trust that through responsibility you will find meaning. When you take responsibility, you align yourself with His plan. You become someone who does not just react to life, but who actively builds something meaningful. You become a person of integrity, strength, and purpose. If you want to find meaning in life, do not wait for it to come to you. Step forward, take responsibility, and trust that God will guide you as you move. The world needs people who are willing to stand up, to take ownership of their actions, and to pursue what is right. You can be one of those people. And when you are, you will discover that responsibility is not a burden. It is the very thing that leads to a life of purpose and fulfillment. Struggles and setbacks refine character and prepare us for greater things. This is one of the most difficult yet most important truths to accept in life. No one wants to suffer. No one enjoys hardship. And yet, it is through difficulty that we are shaped into who we are meant to be. The challenges we face are not meaningless. They serve a purpose. They strengthen us, teach us, and prepare us for responsibilities and opportunities we would not otherwise be able to handle. When everything in life is easy, we do not grow, we become complacent. We stay in our comfort zones, avoiding anything that might challenge us or push us beyond what is familiar. But growth does not happen in comfort, it happens in. Just like a tree grows stronger when it is exposed to wind, or muscles grow when they are challenged with resistance, human beings develop character when they endure and overcome struggle. Many people make the mistake of thinking that hardship is a sign that something. They assume that if they are facing obstacles, then they must be on the wrong path or that God has abandoned them. But that is not the case. In fact, some of the greatest individuals in history, leaders, visionaries, and those who have made a lasting impact, faced tremendous hardships before achieving anything significant. Their struggles did not destroy them, they refined them. When you face difficulties, you have a choice. You can allow them to break you, making you bitter and resentful, or you can allow them to build you into someone stronger. The difference is in perspective. If you see struggles as unfair punishments, you will resist them and become angry at the world. But if you see them as opportunities to grow, as preparation for something greater, you will endure them with purpose. God allows struggles in our lives, not because He is cruel, but because He knows that they are necessary for our development. He knows that if we were handed everything easily, we would remain weak, fragile, and unprepared for the real challenges of life. A person who has never faced hardship does not know how to handle responsibility. They do not develop perseverance, resilience, or wisdom. But a person who has been tested, who has been through difficulties and has remained faithful, is capable of handling far more than they ever imagined. Look at your own life. Think about the hardest moments you have faced. Chances are those moments changed you in some way. Maybe they taught you patience, discipline, or humility. Maybe they forced you to confront weaknesses in yourself that you would not have otherwise noticed. Maybe they strengthened your faith and showed you that you are capable of enduring more than you thought. These experiences were not meaningless. They were preparing you for something. And this preparation never stops. Every challenge you face is shaping you for the next stage of your journey. The struggles of today are making you stronger for tomorrow. If you resist this process, if you try to avoid every difficulty or complain every time something goes wrong, you will not grow. But if you trust that your struggles have a purpose, you will come through them stronger, wiser, and more capable than before. This is why faith is so important. If you do not trust in God, then suffering seems random and cruel. But if you do trust Him, you understand that even the hardest moments have meaning. You understand that every setback for something great. You understand that nothing is wasted. Every pain, every hardship, every challenge is part of a larger process of refinement. So when you face difficulties, do not ask, "Oh, why is this happening to me?" Instead ask, "Oh, what is this teaching me? How is this shaping me? What is God preparing me for?" This shift in mindset changes everything. It turns suffering into growth. It turns hardship into strength. And most importantly, it allows you to keep moving forward with faith, knowing that every struggle is making you into the person you were meant to be. God's plan is often beyond human understanding, but faith helps us trust the process. This is a difficult reality for many people to accept because human beings crave certainty. We want to know why things happen the way they do. We want answers, explanations, and a clear path forward, but life does not always give us that. Instead, we are often faced with situations that seem unfair, confusing, or even cruel. We experience setbacks, tragedies, and losses that do not make sense. In these moments, it is easy to doubt, to question everything, and to feel as though we are wandering without direction. But faith teaches us that just because we do not understand something does not mean it is without purpose. God's ways are not our ways, and His perspective is far greater than ours. What seems like chaos to us may actually be part of a much larger design. What feels like failure may be the necessary step towards something greater. The key is to trust, even when we do not fully understand. Imagine a person navigating through a thick fog. They can only see a few steps ahead, and beyond that, everything is uncertain. But if they trust that there is a road, that the path continues beyond what they can see, they will keep moving forward. Faith works the same way. We may not see the full picture, but we trust that God does. We may not understand why something is happening in the moment, but we believe that it has meaning. One of the biggest struggles people face is the need for control. They want to plan every detail of their lives, to predict every outcome, and to ensure that things go exactly as they expect. But life does not work that way. The reality is that no matter how much we plan, there will always be unexpected turns. There will always be moments that catch us off guard, moments that disrupt our sense of certainty. If we rely only on our own understanding, these moments will feel overwhelming. But if we trust that there is a greater plan at work, we can move forward with confidence, even in uncertainty. Faith does not mean ignoring reality. It does not mean pretending that hardships do not exist or that everything will always go smoothly. Instead, it means choosing to believe that even in difficulty, there is meaning. It means trusting that God is at work, even when we do not see immediate results. It means accepting that some answers will only become clear in time and some we may never fully understand. Think about the challenges you have faced in the past. There may have been moments when you questioned everything, when you felt lost or confused. But looking back, you may see that those challenges led to growth. They shaped you, taught you lessons, and prepared you for things you did not even realize you needed to be ready for. At the time, the purpose may not have been clear, but with time and reflection, you can often see how everything connected. This is why faith is so powerful. It allows us to keep moving forward, even when we do not have all the answers. It gives us the strength to endure uncertainty without losing hope. It reminds us that we are not alone, that we are not simply drifting through life without purpose. God has a plan, and even when we do not understand it, we can trust that it is. So when you find yourself in a situation that makes no sense, when life takes an unexpected turn, when things feel unfair or meaningless, remember this. Just because you do not see the purpose now does not mean there is no purpose. Trust the process. Have faith that God is guiding you, even when the path is unclear. and cleave them. And one day that one day, you will go.
Life is not easy, and anyone who tells you otherwise is not being honest. Every single person, no matter how successful or secure they may seem, faces struggles, loss, disappointment, failure, and pain are unavoidable part. But what separates those who grow stronger from those who fall apart is the ability to endure, to remain steadfast, and to keep moving forward despite adversity. And the only way to do that is through trust. Trust in something greater than yourself. Trust that your suffering is not meaningless. And trust that you are being shaped by your struggles rather than destroyed by them. When hardship comes, people respond in different ways. Some become bitter and resentful, blaming the world, blaming others, and even blaming God for their pain. They let difficulty hearten them, turning them into people who see only negativity and despair. Others choose escapism, trying to avoid their problems through distractions, whether that be through entertainment, addictions, or unhealthy behaviors. These approaches may provide temporary relief, but they do not build real strength. In fact, they weaken a person over time, making them more fragile and unable to handle future challenges. The only way to truly build resilience is to confront difficulty head-on while trusting that it serves. When you believe that God is with you in your struggle, that He is using them to refine you, you gain a different perspective. You stop seeing hardships as things that are simply happening to you and start seeing them as opportunities to grow. This shift in mindset is what separates those who crumble under pressure from those who rise above their circumstances. Consider how physical strength is built. A person does not become strong by avoiding. They become strong by engaging in resistance, by lifting heavier and heavier weights, pushing their limits, and allowing their muscles to be broken down so they can rebuild stronger. The same is true for inner strength. It is built through resistance, through facing difficulties, through enduring hardship, and coming out the other side wiser and more capable. Trusting God allows you to endure these struggles without breaking. People who trust in themselves alone often find that their strength runs out. When things become too difficult, when life throws unexpected challenges their way, they reach a point where they have nothing left to give. Their own determination can only take them so far. But those who trust in God have a source of strength that does not run dry. They understand they are not facing their battles alone. They know that even when their own strength fails, there is something greater holding them up. This trust is what allows them to keep going when others give up. Think about the people in history who have faced immense challenges and yet remained steadfast. They were not necessarily the most intelligent, the most talented, or the most privileged. What set them apart was their ability to endure, their refusal to let hardship define them, and their unwavering faith that their struggles had meaning. The same is true for you. You do not have to be the strongest or smartest or the most capable person. You simply have to be willing to trust that even in the hardest moments, you are being shaped for something greater. This trust does not mean that life will be easy. It does not mean that you will always understand why things happen the way they do. But it does mean that you will not be overcome by your struggles. It means that every difficulty, every setback, every painful moment is refining you, making you more resilient, and preparing you for what is ahead. So when challenges come, do not shrink back in fear. Do not waste time asking why life is unfair or why you must go through difficulties. Instead, choose to trust. Trust that you are being strengthened. Trust that God is using even your hardest moments for good. And trust that when you come through on the other side, you will be stronger, wiser, and more prepared for whatever comes next. Trusting God helps us find peace in uncertainty and chaos. Life is unpredictable, and no matter how much we try to plan or control our circumstances, unexpected challenges will arise. Uncertainty can be overwhelming. It can create anxiety, fear, and doubt, leaving us feeling lost in direction. Chaos, whether in our personal lives or the world around us, can make it seem like everything is spiraling out of control. But when we place our trust in God, we find an anchor, something steady and unshakable that keeps us grounded even in the most turbulent time.
Many people struggle with uncertainty because they believe they must have all the answers. They want to know exactly how things will turn out. They want guarantees that their plans will succeed, that their relationships will last, that their efforts will be rewarded. But life does not work that way. No one can predict the future, and no one is immune to hardship. If we rely only on our ability to control circumstances, we will inevitably experience fear and frustration when things do not go as planned. This is where faith becomes essential. Trusting God does not mean we ignore reality or pretend that everything is fine when it is not. Instead, it means that we acknowledge the uncertainty of life while choosing to believe that we are not navigating it alone. It means recognizing that even when we do not have the answers, God does. Even when we do not see the way forward, He is guiding us. This trust does not eliminate challenges, but it gives us the strength to face them with confidence instead of fear. One of the most common sources of stress is the fear of the unknown. People worry about their future, their finances, their health, their relationships, and 1,000 other things that are outside of their control. But worry does not change it, and it does not make the future more certain or the present more manageable. In fact, it often makes things worse by draining energy and preventing clear thinking. Trusting God allows us to let go of this anxiety. It allows us to focus on what we can control, our actions, our attitude, and our faith, but while leaving the rest in His hands. Think about the moments in your life when you have felt the most peace. They were likely not the moments when everything was perfect, but rather the moments when you knew deep down that things would be okay, even if you did not know how.
That kind of peace does not come from circumstances. It comes from trust. It comes from believing that you are cared for, that your life has purpose, and that even in the midst of uncertainty, you are being led in the right direction. This kind of trust requires practice.
It is not something that happens automatically. It is a choice that must be made daily, especially in difficult times. When everything feels uncertain, when chaos surrounds you, you must consciously decide to trust rather than panic. You must remind yourself that God has carried you through challenges before and that He will continue to do so. There will always be things in life that do not make sense. There will be seasons of confusion, loss, and doubt. But trusting God means believing that even when we do not understand, He does. It means finding peace not in having all the answers, but in knowing that we are not alone. This trust allows us to move forward with courage, to embrace the unknown rather than fear it, and to rest in the assurance that no matter what happens, we are in God's hands. So when you are faced with uncertainty, do not let fear control you. Choose to trust. Choose to believe that there is a plan, even if you cannot see it. Choose to find peace in knowing that you are being guided, that you are being cared for, and that in the end, everything will unfold as it is meant to. This trust does not just bring comfort, it brings strength. It allows you to navigate the chaos of life with confidence, knowing that you are never alone. Faith in God transforms suffering into growth and meaning. Every person experiences suffering in some form: pain, loss, disappointment, or hardship. Suffering is unavoidable, but what truly matters is how we respond to it. Some people allow suffering to break them, filling them with bitterness, anger, and despair. Others use their suffering as a stepping stone for growth, allowing it to deepen their understanding, strengthen their character, and lead them to a greater personal faith. When we trust that our struggles are not meaningless, that they serve a purpose beyond what we can immediately see, we find the strength to endure and the ability to transform pain into something meaningful. Pain often feels unfair. When we go through difficult times, it is natural to ask, why me? Or why is this happening? We want answers. And when we do not get them, we may feel lost or abandoned. But faith teaches us to look beyond the immediate pain and trust that there is a bigger picture. Just as a sculptor chisels away at a block of stone to reveal a masterpiece, suffering can be the tool that shapes us into who we are meant to be. Without difficulty, we would remain unchanged, lacking the depth and strength that only struggle can develop. Consider the most resilient, wise, and compassionate people you know. They have likely endured hardship. They have suffered loss, faced rejection, or experienced great difficulty, yet they have emerged stronger. Their suffering did not destroy them. They learned perseverance, patience, and humility. Their experiences gave them insight and a deeper appreciation for life. This transformation is only possible when suffering is met with faith. Faith that hardship is not the end of the story, but part of a greater. One of the greatest challenges of suffering is that it often feels isolating. When we are in pain, we feel alone, as if no one truly understands what we are going through. But faith reminds us that we are never alone. God walks with us in our suffering, offering strength and comfort. Even when we cannot see the purpose of our pain, we can trust that He is working through it. This trust does not take away the difficulty, but it does change how we experience it. Instead of feeling hopeless, we hold on to the belief that something good can come from even the darkest moments. Many of the greatest accomplishments in history were born out of suffering. Some of the most powerful works of art, literature, and music were created by individuals who endured immense hardship. Some of the most influential leaders and thinkers were shaped by their struggles. Their pain gave them a perspective they would not have otherwise had. It deepened their sense of purpose and gave them the resilience to make a difference in the world. Faith in God does not mean that suffering disappears, but it does mean that suffering is not meaningless. It means that even when we do not understand why we are going through something, we can trust that there is a reason. It means that instead of allowing pain to destroy us, we allow it to teach us. We use it to grow stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. When we face suffering, we have a choice. We can let it consume us, making us bitter and resentful, or we can use it as a tool for transformation. Faith helps us make the right choice. It allows us to see suffering not as an end, but as part of the journey. It gives us the courage to keep moving forward, knowing that even the hardest moments of our lives are shaping us for something greater. And in the end, it is this faith that turns pain into purpose, struggle into strength, and suffering into a path toward deeper understanding and meaning. In the end, trusting God in all things is not just about blind faith. It is about seeing the world differently, understanding that everything has a purpose, and knowing that we are part of something greater than ourselves. Life is full of challenges, uncertainties, and hardships, but when we place our trust in God, we gain strength that does not falter, peace that is not dependent on circumstances, and resilience that turns suffering into growth. We may not always understand why things happen. We may face moments of deep confusion, loss, or hardship that make us question everything. But faith teaches us that even in those moments there is meaning. Every trial shapes us. Every struggle refines us. Every loss teaches us something valuable. We are never alone. True peace comes not from having control, but from surrendering control. It comes from accepting that we will never have all the answers, but trusting that the one who does is guiding us. Faith transforms how we see suffering, how we endure hardship, and how we navigate the uncertainty of life. It allows us to move forward with courage, knowing that even when we do not see the path, it is there. So when life feels overwhelming, when the future seems unclear, when hardship weighs you down, remember this: trust is a choice. You can choose faith. You can choose to see chaos, or you can choose to see purpose. And when you choose to trust, you will find that no matter what happens, you are held, you are guided, and you are being shaped for something greater.